Hi, I'm Steve Dyer. Thought I'd talk to you a little bit today about cowboy safety. And if you ride horses for very long, here's the bare fact. You are going to fall off. Some of us have done it hundreds of times. Okay? And we have the ER bills to prove it. That's just the fact. Most of us consider the joy worth the trouble, worth the risk. We get so much out of it emotionally, spiritually, all those ways. It's worth it to us. So if it's not worth it to you, then, don't do it. I recommend chess. It's a wonderful game. But that said, let me tell you this. The number one safest thing I can tell you, far more than all this equipment I'm going to show you, number one thing I can tell you, far and above, ride a well-trained horse. Because most people who get hurt, the vast majority, they are not riding a well-trained horse. Spend the extra money, and it will cost you to buy a good, well-trained horse. Or pay a good trainer. There are thousands of good trainers in America today. Pay a good trainer to train your horse. And you say, oh, Steve, I can't afford that. Well, have you checked the price of just one broken arm lately at the ER? I promise you it's a lot more than a horse trainer. So that's just the first thing I want to say and reiterate. That's the safest thing you can do is have a really good, well-trained horse. That said, let me show you some safety stuff. And I'm going to start here on my saddle with this piece of leather here, which is called a night latch. And it can be rope or anything. This one happens to be a dog collar I bought at the tack store. And what it's for, I'm going to sit here, is when you put your hand in it, then you can pull yourself down into the saddle and lower your center of gravity. So if you feel your horse tense up and your horse is, you think the horse might spook at something, just take one hand and put it in that night latch and pull yourself down into that saddle and help a lot. If that horse happens to goose one way or the other. It won't help you if the horse breaks in two and he's doing a NFR style bucker. You're not going to be able to grab it, but it does help in that sense. Next is the stirrups. If my camera girl will pan down here, I want to show you, this is the saddle that I ride most every day. And these are not the stirrups that came on the saddle. Most saddles that you buy in the tack store, they come with 4-inch stirrups, and these are 5-inch roping stirrups. So you can see there's not much chance that my foot is going to get caught in that stirrup. And if you get your foot caught in a stirrup, that is a bad thing. I shouldn't have to explain to you how bad that is. So pay a little extra, buy some good stirrups that have plenty of room for your foot to move in and out. Next are cowboy boots. Cowboy boots do not lace. They are pull on and pull off. And here's the reason why they were invented that way. Because if you do happen to fall off and get a foot caught in a stirrup, that cowboy boot will come off. And yes, it has happened to me. A few years ago, I was riding a 3-year-old and she spun out from under me. And when I stood up, picked myself up off the ground, I was barefoot on one foot because my boot had caught in the stirrup, and it wasn't this stirrup, it was one that was a little smaller. And so I was not hurt. And that's the reason we wear boots that are loose. And also the fact that the heel on the cowboy boot keeps it from getting your foot pushed through that stirrup. I do a lot of lessons with kids, and one of the first things I do is try to convince the kid or the parent to buy that kid a pair of cowboy boots, not tennis shoes. Because tennis shoes, your foot can actually go through that stirrup and you can get caught, and it's a bad, dangerous thing. Okay, next are Chaps. These happen to be chinks, which go mid-thigh. Chaps were actually invented before blue jeans. Back in the heyday of the cowboy era, late 1800s, in South Texas, they would gather these cattle, and they still do actually, in South Texas, with a lot of mesquite trees that are very sharp and have thorns, and they would just rip up a pair of cotton pants like that. And so in South Texas, in that area, they wear shotgun chaps, which go all the way down to the boot. For that reason, because a lot of things down in here will poke them. These are chinks, which come from the Great Basin era, where they don't have the mesquite, but they have evergreen trees and things that are a little higher off the ground. As far as safety with these, the main thing that they will help you with safety is if a horse kicks or strikes. I know a couple of guys that are full-time trainers who ride every day, and they always wear chinks. And part of it is to protect their legs from getting kicked or struck. And the other part is that the leather on the chinks here helps you to grip the saddle, gives you a little more of a grip so you can stay on a little better. I personally don't wear them a lot because blue jeans are usually sufficient for what I do. Which brings me to the next thing, which is blue jeans. Blue jeans were invented in the mid-1800s, but they weren't readily available to most people, most cowboys, until into the 20th century. But now pretty much they're tough enough for most everything that most of us do. And maybe you're wondering why it is that we cowboys wear our jeans too long. If you've seen Cowboy, he's got a lot of, I guess you'd call it, wrinkles in his jeans like this. And the reason for that is because if you don't buy them like that, when you sit on your horse, then your jeans will hike clear up here like this and you look like a goober. Okay, so that's the reason that we buy them longer. For that reason, it's mostly a style more than anything else. And the trophy buckle's optional. Last thing I want to show you here is a knife. A lot of guys use a pocket knife. Some guys use a scabbard knife that fits on their belt. Personally, I like a Leatherman because it's a multi-tool and I can cut barbed wire and do all kinds of things with it besides just a knife. But there have been times in my career when I've had a horse get in trouble or me get in trouble and I needed to pull out a knife pretty fast and cut something. So that's pretty much a pretty helpful thing. So that's just part one of this. I hope you'll stay tuned for the second part of this safety video, because I'm going to talk about hats and helmets and things that we wear that keep us safe.